will definitely not shut up and dribble.
The champ is here.
I must be the greatest.
The champ is here.
I'm going to continue to stand with the people.
The champ is here.
I will not lose.
I'm a bad man. I took up the world.
Yes, welcome. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you are here with we. My name is EJ, and I got my man,
MH.
He is the DB of the show, and we are Blackinsports, giving a voice to the culture that won't shut up and dribble. Today, we're bringing you back inside the locker room to talk about topics in and around the game. MH, you ready to do this?
Yes, sir.
All right, man. So let's talk about America's pastime. All right. So, there's a couple of things that's synonymous with America, right? They put that title on it, and it just kind of puts that stamp on it, right? So, some say in football, America's team is the Cowboys, right? And then, America's pastime
would be accurate. Will probably be accurate in that statement.
Okay, so then another thing they say is America's pastime is baseball. And this is the kind of those summer months where like baseball is really the biggest and main shining, I guess, sport out there, right? While the other leagues are either gearing up or going through their thing. So a lot of baseball on TV, and we're kind of coming up to kind of one of the epicenters of baseball. Before I kind of get into that, man, I just want to talk to you about like what is your kind of memories or feels with America's pastime, right?
Yeah. Challenging game was probably my original thought. I wasn't that great of a baseball player. I started off well when I was young, I guess before the age of 12, and then took a little break because football was just kind of my bigger love, and try to get back into baseball later on and closer to my high school year, and I just wasn't there. So I was fast. So I was never the person that, I didn't like being the person that had to bunt to get on base, try to steal a base. That was batting seventh and eighth and order. That wasn't good for my confidence and my psyche as an athlete. So I didn't stick with baseball that long.
I think I had some of the same kind of thing, right? Like, youth, right? When I was young, played in the baseball league, the park league, I was pitcher. Well, first, of course, started out in the outfield, right? Like put them out there,
Right field. Ain't nobody left-handed. Go in right field. They ain't gonna
way
be
out there singing songs for myself, picking the grass. But as of course I come of age, I did get a little better, you know what I'm saying? Lost that what they call that baby fat, right? So got faster and all that good stuff. So yeah, man, I mean kind of same process of like getting in and starting, to play the game and learn the game, I guess.
Yeah, I think it was an easy game to pick up when I was younger, and then somehow, and this may be where I just grew up, it kind of transitioned to kind of maybe more of a club atmosphere a little bit. So it kind of turned into some of my friends that were club soccer, they played club baseball too, and that just wasn't where I really fit in. I was more kind of basketball and football. So nothing really personal against baseball, but I just we just went our separate ways. I didn't like batting seventh in the lineup. That's
facts. So that's, I think, really what kind of really sparked me when we were talking pre-show and to get ready. This is just like there's just really talked about like an affinity or like how really just the culture fell out of love with America's pastime, right? And because baseball, and we've had a couple people on the show, right, that talked about the love. I mean, we even had our own, the whole Negro League that like played the game. And I mean, even when we talked to Damon John, right, he talked about like that New York playing stickball and all of that stuff, like true to the core. So it's just like at some point, where do we fall out of love as a whole culture, black people in the culture for baseball? Because it's like really a dying kind of sport as far as our participation or our interest, and like the MLB attempting to build that back.
Yeah, it's interesting. I know nobody really likes lockouts. I think it was the 1994 season or around there when they went on their lockout, and there just wasn't baseball, so that missed a year. But that 90s from 94 to 98, there's been other like kind of really crucial years in baseball's history. So I'm not gonna downplay any of that. But just from my perspective, those were like some vital times that year. You had, Ken Griffey was probably the most popular player. Obviously, Barry Bonds was popular, but there was still something lacking. They was trying to re-engage their fan base after coming from that lockout or work stoppage.
Right.
So one of my personal memories about is in 1998, the All-Star game came to Coors Field, which is in Denver, Colorado. I grew up in Denver, Colorado. And, similar to Las Vegas, you might not, the Rockies were new to the city. You might not have been a huge fan of a sport. But, we're experiencing this in Las Vegas with the Golden Knights being here. You kind of turn into a fan because it's just kind of like your team, right? So
yeah,
I like the Rockies. They had, Larry Walker, Dante Bichette. I can name a lot of different players. Eric Young was the second baseman back in the day I used to love. So I followed them. And when the All-Star game came, my dad worked in the Boys and Girls Club. And they had a thing that's called RBI. It's a Reviving Baseball in the Inner Cities. And I still think they do the program with the Boys and Girls Club. But it's geared to kind of get access or start teenagers or little older kids from 12 to 18 into baseball, fast pitch baseball for boys, or fast pitch for softball for girls, and then obviously competitive baseball for boys into baseball, just to kind of get more in our inner cities, kind of where the game was positioned a lot when we were, from our parents were growing up, but now it's kind of shifted, like I said earlier. But I just remember how big that was for me individually and personally. They did a catch across the city, so everybody caught the ball across the city. I was a part of that, and my dad, being the great American Negro he is, snuck us, got me into the All-Star game with one ticket. He got in there, and I got to walk with some of the kids that were going on the field with players and stuff like that. So huge memories that stuck with me in my whole life and into my professional career of what I'm doing now came from that day and from that weekend in the All-Star game. So I say that all to say that it's just sometimes it's just about access. How do you get kids to actually experience some of those moments? I know the baseball, there's 162 games. It's during the summer. Kids are traveling, families are traveling. I always wondered if that was a reason, if not a bad thing, but is it a reason why those experiences maybe don't happen as much because people travel, people do other things in the summer, and there's a game every Tuesday, and so maybe those unique experiences are not as prevalent as they are with football because there's only 8 games, right? So those games are 8 home games, so the game's a little special. So that's always kind of been my thought about in their practices, just because there's a whole lot of games, you kind of forget about those special, unique moments in certain ways.
And you talked about the access, right? So, what is causing that, right? Because there used to be, there's probably more baseball fields. Just, if you think about here in the city, in most cities, there are more. Now, they may not be nice baseball fields,
right?
But, on average, there's more of those. Is it access or just kind of access from not the availability of it being there, but the access of being introduced to it, right? Is that, kind of where you're looking at? Because, that's one way I think Major League Baseball is looking at it, right? So maybe 2 years ago or maybe this year, they just made a pledge to kind of do something similar to RBI, the program that you were referencing that I do believe is still around. But now they're doing something with, it's called the Players Alliance. And I think you remember that came to Las Vegas, and we stopped by and just kind of helped, showed our presence there. But like Mookie Betts and a couple of other local, I forget his last name here, but there's a couple local Vegas guys that play for professional teams, that are on that. And their whole thing is kind of showing the youth these players hey, you can get to the big league and attempt to promote access. But I don't want to answer the question for you, but it just seems like that's one of the paths, that they're looking to, kind of fix this or help change the trajectory.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I think we've touched on it a million times on the show is, you kind of representation matters. So if you see yourself in somebody else that can inspire somebody to stick with something. I remember in 98 when they were having that home run race for the record. It was Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa going back and forth. And obviously I was more of a fan of Sammy Sosa. I shouldn't say obviously, but
obviously
I kind of reckon, I was like, oh, I see a little bit of me, right? He's black. And then
not now, but then
he's not now, right? But then I heard him talking. I was like, oh well, he's black, but we don't speak the same. We same descendants, but we just there's something that switched up.
Similar,
Yeah,
different, similar but different.
Cousins,
Cousins.
Right? My hair don't lay down like that. Okay, yeah. So like, I get it. So I guess I say all I have to say is that I think there's programs in place, to your point, that they're showing that access and maybe highlighting more of the players. Mookie Betts being one of our current players. That this is something that is popular in the hood, and it's something that's popular in the suburbs as well.
Right.
I often wonder, and I guess I asked you this as well. As easy as it is to keep baseball is probably relatively simple to start. You just need a glove and some cleats and maybe a bat. I always remember the movie Sandlot. It was like a group of kids, right?
Right.
And I don't know how kids move that much anymore. I'm a little older, but there's still like a group that you have to function, right? I remember we used to do 3-on-3 baseball when I was growing up, and there was a group of kids, but 3-on-3 basketball was just easier to do. That's a little bit more, accurate to what the 5-on-5 game is. And in baseball, there's
and you don't need any equipment in basketball. Right? Only one person needs to have a basketball.
That's it.
Right.
Everybody. So I do wonder if that's a certain thing, because even with football, everybody plays sideline pop in the street, right? So like, it was just easier to execute just a random pickup game at the time growing up than it was with baseball. I wonder if that has something to do with it. Do you think that, or
so one of the things? No, that's definitely part facts, right? Like, you start talking about like all the programs, right? Like there were summer programs where you went out and you played, these things, right? So like, I don't know if that's part of it as well. But then the other thing is, right, like they talk about the death or the birth of hip hop culture, and hip hop culture and basketball, for a lack of a better title, Love and Basketball happened, right? And not the movie, just the kind of like the culture of hip hop and music and the genres and the way they carried it. It became so entwined with each other that Stern had to make a whole uniform kind of code just to attempt to break those parts about. So it's where it became like a cool factor. And then baseball somehow became less cool, right? Because you didn't see anyone with us having our kind of swag, right? Like we had to go into baseball and then you had to follow this unwritten code of baseball. And I think a lot of the thing about baseball is like that home run thing was the most exciting thing that you got out of baseball. And they still attempted to like hush that or quiet that, not seeing people flip the bat, all of those things that like makes baseball a traditionalist kind of game. And it's, as much as you call the NFL the no fun league, like, you still got to see people's who they were, right? People got to become their own identity and personalities inside the game, to where it's like, even though we always say the NFL is the shield, you still get characters. You get like, there's, wide receivers have a mentality, DBs have a mentality, linebacker, quarterback carries a certain presence. And you see that with all of the positions. And, even though NFL fights we talk about the helmet thing, basketball players, like they have that identity where I love this team, but you get to, ingratiate yourself with a player, to where baseball is just kind of like, I'm here. And then once you stop having the stars with like those personality, like Ricky Henderson, who like was cool as hell because he did something no other person was doing by stealing bases, but this nigga talked to himself in the third person. So
yeah, it's funny that you mentioned those things, because I would think in a lot of sports where like player mobility, we always talk about the NBA, or Kevin Durant he's about to play for about 4 teams.
14 more.
Yeah, like LeBron is the best player of the game. He's represented legit like 3 different franchises at a time,
and other
right?
players, right? Like just
like he's been mobile, and that's been good for the NBA. Whereas in baseball, I kind of think the opposite is kind of been bad for the sport. When I was growing up, I thought of Griffey, and I was a part Seattle Mariners fan because of Ken Griffey. I know Barry Bonds started with the Pirates, but I like the Giants. I was knew who the Giants were because of Barry Bonds, and Sammy Sosa with the Cubs, and there's a couple others, Ricky Henderson with the Athletics and Ozzie Smith with the Cardinals. Those are like synonymous with
With the
those
team.
organizations, right?
Yes,
And
absolutely.
so a little bit of baseball is like you got to have a team to really live the sport, right? You follow the team throughout the time, and then obviously as you learn players, you follow them throughout their season. But when players start moving around, you're like, oh, that's not. To me, I don't think that helps the sport because it's a different sport where it's not necessarily the players that to me that you highlight is more of the teams and the players with the team. And when they start moving around a little bit, I think that changes. In my opinion, that's just my opinion a little bit.
No,
Because
and
same with
for
football.
that game, right?
Yeah. Football is the same way. You like the Steelers. Big Ben is a part of the Steelers organization, just like somebody else would be, right? But you like the Steelers. Dak Prescott is a part of the Cowboys organization, just like Romo is, but I like the Cowboys. You know what I mean? So you kind of grow up with the team, but player mobility in baseball, to me, switches that up a little bit because, it's hard to market a player at the same time with baseball, as we're mentioning, but I think the framework of their organization is better if you highlight the teams, if that makes sense.
So I believe it. So I like that, right? But I think I would take it a step further. For me, I think it's the framework of the game, right?
Okay.
Because and I think you even alluded to this earlier, we're not watching 150 games, right?
Right.
Like, how do you get excited for 150 games where one of the games is on a Tuesday at 3:30, right? On the East Coast, excuse me. So it's 1:30 our time. Like, how do you get up for that, right? When there's no other connection to the team because they don't have that player mobility or, us having connecting to the players, right? And then what do you root for? Like, oh my, because like what do they say about your batting average to get to Hall of Fame? Like it's like really terrible.
Yeah. I mean, if you're doing 30% of
30%.
if you're getting on base 30% of the time, you good. That's 300. That's you batting 300. That's
So
above average.
when you're looking at the game like that, you're like, it's almost kind of like when people don't like watching Floyd Mayweather because he's a true boxer, right? Like they're like, oh, it's not. He's a defensive, like he's not getting hit. Like he's not there to the game to get punched in the face. He's a technical boxer, right? So, but people don't like that if they're not a purist of the sport. So when you're looking to attract avid fans, and we do talk about these other leagues, they're looking to change the rules, speed up the game. Like, I mean, look at we both love football. Like that's no cap, right? Like that's just what it is. Football's evolved because it used to be like defense wins championships, right? Like back in the day, but now it's like, no, you put up enough points.
Right.
That's the end of the game. But now we've adjusted and evolved and accepted that part of the game, although it's bringing new fans that like to see that scoreboard light up.
I agree. And I guess the beauty of baseball being somewhat tradition, to your point, may be hurting it a little bit as well. When it just comes to the popularity as a whole, because there's still a whole lot of baseball fans. I don't want to disrespect it, but maybe that has something to do with it. Yeah.
I mean, shout out to the Aviators. I'm rocking the cap today, and
For sure.
support the Aviators, or I'm gonna call them the 51s. Mama called them Clay. I'm gonna call them Clay, but shout out to the original 51s, now the Aviators. They have attendance, right? Like, beautiful ballpark. They're doing different things to kind of like keep fans engaged, and at least they're winning. There was a point and spell where we didn't win as much, but it's putting that kind of product out there, and it's enjoyable to do, right? Like it's a breakup for us, living here, in Las Vegas, to go see that game. And talking about popularity, right? So another way that you can gauge a sport is by how their AllStar Weekend does, right? So we're coming up on the MLB AllStar break that's going to be in California this year in LA. And have you ever been to an AllStar Weekend and really heard people like talk it up like, yo, it's AllStar Weekend? Like I'm going like, NFL or NBA or any other thing. Heck, I think we have more people in Vegas for the hockey AllStar Weekend than.
I mean, I told you that one of the greatest youth experiences was that I wasn't turning up. I just remember getting a Beanie Baby at the game. So
one of the exclusives, right?
Yeah. A different perspective on it. But I don't know. I know the home run derby has made a couple little switches, and I think that used to be the highlight of the weekend. Because it's kind of like basketball's version of the slam dunk contest, where you had the big time, players and hitters that will participate. And I think that's even changed a little bit, just similar to the NBA All-Star game was changed. I got not necessarily a solution, but a thought.
Oh, let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Does baseball have a version of like Hard Knocks that we have in NFL or
mic'd up even like something?
Yeah,
no,
I know. F1 is growing now with its Netflix special, or I don't know about. Still got to watch it. I got to do my homework and watch it.
And you know where they could do it? They could do it at spring training.
Yeah, they had.
Did they have something?
They had something. Just looking it up, I've never seen it, but it said, MLB Network used to have a similar thing called the Club, which followed the Chicago White Sox in 2010. But that's, this is from.
And obviously, did not do well.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think test that out.
Test that
out, and it might engage. The way we consume TV now, through apps and everything like that. It may engage a new fan base. Maybe, I don't know. Just shooting the breeze with you, brother.
I like the idea. It needs something, because I think the other thing that's really sad when you look at it is if you look at some of the Pitt team photos for HBCUs, there's a lot of non-blacks on the team that make up the team. I remember they were showing that they did a special on, I believe, Howard, and I think they have 3-4 black guys on the team, to where they need, if they want to keep this baseball, and these kids hey, I can go get a scholarship here, why not? But we just see the numbers dwindling. And so Tides is that that institute that does the review and the grades of how diversity is happening. Out of Florida, out of UCF. They said blacks in baseball is the lowest it's been in 3 decades, and it's just it's declining. So it's just what I think that's definitely one solution, right? To how do they expose them? I wonder how many of our listeners or people have even heard of the Players Alliance, right? And what they can do in the different ways they could advocate.
Yeah, as a whole, is it more of a club sport, or is it kind of like soccer here in the country, right? Where for everybody play soccer globally, so it's an easy sport to get involved with and start. You don't take any money, but here it costs a lot of money to play soccer. You know what I mean? If you want to play it to a certain competitive nature, it costs a lot of money to play soccer in the States.
So how do the investments change, right? Because you've seen all these movies where they go to these developing countries and take these raw athletes and take them in and
air up there. We should have named that one a sport movie. That movie is dope too.
So they kind of do that, but it's just who's investing in the game, and do we because what the crazy part about it, if you look at to make it out the hood, you either have a sell crack rock or you have a wicked jump shot, but our primary sports are football and basketball to get out, and baseball, these cats get guaranteed contracts, right? And we just talk about the amount of people and the amount. Even if you look at it, right? So here's another example. You've had top there's top quarterbacks in the league right now that could have went and played baseball, made more money, probably less wear and tear on their bodies. It's nah, cuz I'm gonna do this. Was it Russell and what's my Arizona guy?
Yeah, Kyler Murray.
They was nah, I'm pass. I'm gonna go do this. So what is it about the game that it's just we're nah, hard pass. That's a no for me, dog.
Yeah, I don't know.
Right?
I don't know. I would say in their position, there's nothing quite like being a quarterback in the NFL. I think that's a unique position, to any sport, right? If you're a quarterback in the NFL, there's only 32 of those dudes walking right now. You know what I mean? I think that's a unique position. So I don't know. For that is that.
Correct, right?
When Prime played, he was.
That's what I was about to say. The 2 of them we didn't even shot. I know that was probably during our whole time frame too. That's Prime.
Yeah, Prime and shoot, Bo Jackson was ridiculous.
Yes,
and I'm not gonna forget Brian Jordan. He also played in the secondary with Prime with the Falcons. and played for the Atlanta Braves. So he was doing it too. He just wasn't as flashy as Prime
Flashy.
or as good. I'm not going to disrespect that. But yeah, I don't know. That's a great point because Kyler Murray probably he's doing the contract negotiations now, and he
Right.
probably like, shit, I could have just went
I
to
could just-
athletics and I wouldn't have to worry about this. You know what I mean? I'd have been cool, little second
I've
baseman.
been really
wherever he was.
cool.
Yeah. I
So-
don't know.
But
That's-
it's interesting, man.
It's an
So, I
interesting
mean,
case study there. Case
very-
study. I like
so,
that. I learned that
I
phrase
mean,
today.
we definitely case study. Yeah, have to figure out, do a white paper on it with our findings
Findings and case study. I like that. That makes you feel smart.
all day. But no, man, it was just something like, just wanted to throw out there, man, because it is definitely a sport that we've contributed to. And we have on April 15th, we celebrate and recognize Jackie Robinson Day. And it's just like, damn, would Jackie be sad? Like, what he went through, and it's like, I'm cool.
Even Jack would have been like, my crossover is cold too, because I know he's a hooper. He might even did something a little different too. I don't know.
So do you think the leagues have something to do with it? Right? Because it's like, I don't know.
I think
There
you hit
is
on the
cachet.
point. Like there's just I think you just kind of hit on a point in this country, I should say.
Mhm.
We only focus on the U.S., right?
Correct.
It's just that football and basketball are kind of, for us, largely are like, this is what we see the most, I guess. I don't know if we see the most or we just like it the most, enjoy it the most. I don't know what it is. It's just the most popular for our culture is that, and it's not so much with baseball or soccer, and that might not have been the same in Jackie Robinson's day. You know what I mean? I don't think the NBA was nowhere near, if even in existence at that point. I think it was still split of
Mhm.
what popularity was, what baseball was. I don't know. I shouldn't say that. I just don't think it was
But I
as
think that
prevalent.
was right. The love of the game, though, back then, that was that love of that game.
Right.
Because I mean, if you have like, it's funny, like we had, the president of the Negro League Museum, and just him talking about it, right? Like his love for it and his kind of,
I loved it
interaction for
too.
it, right? We had Uncle LL, we had Larry Lesser on who helped get the numbers. We had the young guy. Where did he play? Did he play at Howard? But we've had a couple of baseball people that like they love that game, but it's just, I think the game itself is just not kind of evolved with the time of where we at, right? Like we are such an instant gratification. Like, are
Right.
you really looking to sit like 9 hours at a game that goes 0-1?
It's funny. I just don't know where it shifted, and maybe the listeners, maybe in the locker. This is for the live show. I think this is
That's a good one. Yeah,
subject
for the live. Yeah,
because even Coach Reese on the last live show. Shout out to Coach Reese. She's dope. She said, we were talking about basketball and how they be hooping for like the love of the game, and she was like,
Yeah.
well, even in the prisons, that's where they hooping for the love. But I remember one of my favorite movies is Life, right? And they was playing baseball. Were they
They were
not?
playing- all they were looking for is that they ended the thing at the Mets or whatever the game. They got
the
tickets
game.
to
It
the
was a
game.
Yankees game. Yeah, they
The
were
Yankees
playing
game, yeah.
baseball. So I don't know when that shifted.
Like, when did we lose that?
Yeah,
Like
when did that shift?
So yeah, we definitely taking that to live, man.
Yeah.
So just a thought, man. We want to bring that to the locker room, man. So All-Star Weekend's coming. I know we are heavily, football, basketball on here and the culture stuff, but baseball used to be a part of the culture, man. You got anything else before we get out of here, MH?
I still think it's there. I just want to. I'm really thinking about that. When did it shift? I don't know when it shifted. Right, Ken Griffey. It was like Michael Jordan, Griffey, and probably like Frank Thomas, like the Big Hurt. Like those were
The Big
probably
Hurt.
like the icon. Then you might throw in Emmitt Smith after that, and Dion was kind of in there too. But as I look at like popular players, it was probably Jordan and Ken Griffey in the '90s. I don't know when it shifted. I really don't know.
What was that cartoon? That pro cartoon? Wayne Gretzky, Bo Jackson, and
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
yeah. So I don't know.
I don't-
That's the question.
I don't know when
Hey,
that
audience,
shifted.
we need to know like when the shift is. We definitely bringing this up on the live, man.
Because them Griffies just came out. They just re-released them Griffies, and I'm getting a pair.
There you
That's
go.
how cold he was. I don't know. I don't know when it shifted.
For sure. Well, hey, thank you guys for listening, man. I hope you like this episode, man. We wanted to change it up and pay a little homage to America's pastime, man. And, looking forward to seeing you on the next episode. Please follow us on all of our social platforms. Please know visual representation matters. And please stay safe, practice gratitude, and know we're rooting for you.
Screaming, all us blacks got is sports and entertainment until we even.
Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Yeah. Yeah. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Look. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Spent about 2 racks on handmade new rags. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. That's everybody from sports to college class to rap and back.